Hello everyone, my name is Zenitsu and I'm back with another Digimon deck profile video. So today I'm going to be taking a look at EX2, and EX2, even though it is a smaller set compared to a normal set, still offers us plenty of powerful new cards to think about building and iterating on some new and existing decks with. And today's deck I'm going to be taking a look at is going to be the Beelzemon deck. So Beelzemon finally gets enough support to actually make a consistent deck out of, even though for the most part it is just your stereotypical purple deck where the goal of the deck is to try to fill up your trash as quickly as you possibly can and utilize your trash as a secondary resource to try to trigger your abilities and make the most out of them. And the deck accomplishes this by utilizing a lot of self-milling mechanics. So without further ado, onto the deck profile. Starting off with the Digitama, I'm going to be running 4 copies of DemiMeramon as the main Digitama. You could run something else if you really felt like you wanted to, but I do just like DemiMeramon as one of the best Digitamas that we have because it's an on-delete ability that we can use to draw 1 card and discard 1 card. So this looting type ability just helps us not only dig through our deck, but to fill up our trash selectively so that way we could set it up with what we need and what we want. But the 5th Digitama of the deck could really be anything you want, and I'm going to be running 1 copy of Pagumon from the starter deck just because Pagumon helps turbo mill, so that way we could try to set up our trash as quickly as we possibly can with his on-delete ability where we get to trash the top 2 cards of our deck. Next, on to the rookies, I'm going to be running 1 copy of Gazimon. So this is kind of a flex spot in the deck, and it could really be anything you want it to be, but I do just like having anti-meta rookie cards when I can, just because their presence could be a little bit of a hindrance on the opponent. So Gazimon here is stopping the opponent from doing memory manipulating shenanigans, where during all turns, your opponent can't gain memory except by tamer effects, trying to limit what they could possibly do in terms of making their cards as effective as they possibly can. And for that same reason, I'm also going to be running up 4 copies of Psychemon, where Psychemon is stopping the opponent from reducing their play costs. Next, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Impmon. This is the BT02 version of Impmon, and he's in the deck because his on-delete ability states that we get to trash the top 3 cards to try to help turbo mill us to get our trash to be as healthy as it could possibly be for our abilities and card effects to, well, be effective. Next, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Impmon. So this is the BT06 version of Impmon, and he has the on-play ability where we get to trash 1 card from our hand, trying to help fill up our trash selectively with a card that we need to be able to return a Digimon with 7 Great Demon Lords or 3 Musketeers from our trash back to our hand. So he's allowing us to swap out 1 card from our hands that we don't want with potentially a card that we do want that fits within his typing, so we could use this to be able to reuse or grab back our Beelzemons. And then the last rookie of the deck is going to be 4 copies of Impmon. So this is the brand new EX2 version of Impmon, and this card just has a lot of good synergy with what the deck is trying to do. So he has a nice ability for rewarding us for trashing him from our deck, where when this card is trashed from your deck, if it wasn't trashed by this Impmon's ability, then we get to trash the top 3 cards of our deck. So if we use this in combination with some of our other mill-based cards, then we get to turbo mill us even faster than we normally would to be able to get our trash to be as healthy as it possibly can. And then he has an on-play ability to help with the deck's overall consistency, acting as the deck's dedicated digger, where we get to reveal the top 4 cards of our deck, add 1 Digimon with Beelzemon in its name and or 1 Ai Mako from among them into our hand, and then the rest go to the bottom. And then on top of that, he has a nice inheritable ability for our Beelzemon to take advantage of, where during your turn, while this Digimon has Beelzemon in its name, then it gets plus 3000 DP, which is pretty good because purple generally has a hard time with its DP efficiency. Next, on to the level 4s, I'm going to be running 2 copies of Loweemon. So Loweemon is a flex spot for the deck. It could really be anything you feel like you want it to be, but I do just like running hybrids in some decks just because we could utilize them to sneak some wins in. Next, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Soulmon. So Soulmon is a card that's helping us with our self-mill strategy and is rewarding us for the act of self-milling. So he has a nice inheritable ability where during your turn once per turn, when you trash a card from your deck, then you get to gain 1 memory. So just the act of us self-milling will help gain us a memory to make our cards more efficient. And then the last level 4 of the deck is going to be 4 copies of Doberman. So Doberman is another card that, like Impmon, is going to be helping us turbo mill our deck to get our trash to be in a very powerful and solid position. So Doberman has an on-delete ability where we get to trash the top 3 cards of our deck, then we get to return 1 purple Digimon or purple Tamer card from our trash to our hand. So if our Tamer actually does get self-milled, then we'll be able to grab it back with Doberman to be able to reuse it, which also leans a little bit into why Loweemon is pretty good, so that way we could actually utilize our Tamers to be able to do various different things with. Then on top of that, if you wanted to spice the deck and run Alice McCoy, he does have some synergy with Alice McCoy, where if you have an Alice McCoy in play, then we could play this card from our hand by reducing its play cost by 2, making it a level 4 for 3 if you wanted to take the deck into that type of direction. Next, on to the ultimates, I'm going to be running 3 copies of BlackWarGrowlmon. So BlackWarGrowlmon is a card that just has lots of good synergy with the deck because his main ability of Digiburst 3 can help us play a level 3 Digimon from our trash for free, but unfortunately we don't get its on-play effect. This is still really good because we're filling up our trash utilizing our inheritable sources, and most likely we're going to want to spawn an Impmon out as our primary level 3 to, well, do Impmon-based things, but we also have access to the floodgates if we wanted to try to lock the opponent out of particular actions, depending on the matchup, making his ability pretty flexible and versatile on how and what we want to use it with. Then on top of that, he has a nice inheritable ability to help with the deck's overall aggression, where when attacking once per turn, we get to delete one of our other Digimon to unsuspend this Digimon. So that way we could multi-swing with the level 6 that is on top of BlackWarGrowlmon. And then the last level 5 of the deck is going to be 3 copies of SkullSatamon. So SkullSatamon is a pretty decent card because of its Demon Lord synergy, which all of the Beelzemons are Demon Lords. So when we Digivolve into this card, we get to trash the top 2 cards of our deck, then we get to return 1 card with Demon Lord in its traits from our trash to our hand. So this way we could actually grab back a Beelzemon and be able to utilize it. But we could use this in combination with Soulmon to just make a very efficient level 5 Digimon to go into. Then he has a nice inheritable ability himself that's acting very similar to Soulmon, being a reward for self-milling by allowing us to gain an extra memory, exactly like Soulmon. Next, on to the level 6s, I'm going to be running 3 copies of Beelzemon. So this is the BT02 version of Beelzemon, and we're utilizing this card mostly because we could warp from our Impmons into this Beelzemon, making him the ideal card to want to use. So what's allowing him to do that is his ability where while we have 10 or more cards in our trash, we could use one of our Impmon to Digivolve into this card from our hand by paying 4 and ignoring its Digivolution requirements. So we have lots of Impmons to be able to utilize this Beelzemon with, to be able to warp with lots of turbo mill potential to easily set up our trash to get it to that point, to be able to make our Impmons very, very threatening, because he has a nice when Digivolving ability for actually utilizing the Beelzemon, where when we Digivolve up into him, we get to delete one of the opponent's level 4 or lower Digimon to try to help control their field. And then the last level 6 of the deck is going to be 4 copies of Beelzemon. So this is the brand new EX2 version of Beelzemon, and we're not actually trying to Digivolve into this card 100% of the time. The reason why we're playing more of this Beelzemon over the other one is because we actually want this to be a mill target, so that way we could gain its ability when it's milled. So it has this nice ability where when this card is trashed from your deck, we get to play 1 Impmon from our trash for free. We do get its on-play ability, so that way we could try to spawn some bodies relatively easily and efficiently. So that way we could line up our warp potential with our warp Beelzemon, and that's kind of the whole synergy and combo play between them. Then if we actually are trying to utilize this Beelzemon, he's still pretty decent because he has a nice when Digivolving / when attacking ability, so this ability will trigger on either of those conditions, where we get to trash the top 2 cards of our deck, then delete one of the opponent's level 3 or lower Digimon, and for every 10 cards in our trash, we get to add 1 to the maximum level in which this Digimon is deleting. So the more cards we have in our trash, the stronger this ability becomes, and we could use this card in combination with our SkullSatamon and Soulmon to be able to make for a very cheap and efficient evolution if we're lining that type of play up. And then the last Digimon and big boss monster of the deck is going to be 3 copies of Beelzemon Blast Mode. So Beelzemon Blast Mode is a really powerful level 7 Digimon for us to use. Stat-wise, it's the same as a lot of other level 7s, 6 to Evo and 15,000 DP. But what we're utilizing this card for is his abilities, where when this card is trashed from our deck, we get to delete one of the opponent's level 4 or lower Digimon, so it's just more self-milling based synergy for us to take advantage of. Then on top of that, he has a nice when Digivolving ability when we Digivolve up into him, where we get to delete one of the opponent's Digimon with the highest level. So he's just acting as some solid removal, classic level 7 stuff, and on top of that, he has another ability where during your turn, for every 10 cards in our trash, this Digimon gains security attack +1, so the more cards we have in our trash, the stronger and harder this card will hit. Next, on to the options, I'm going to be running 2 copies of Jackraid. So Jackraid in this deck is basically the equivalent of Hammerspark, but it actually has the potential to be better than Hammerspark. So for the low cost of 0, you get to gain 1 memory for every 10 cards in our trash. That's kind of why we want to turbo mill our trash, to get it to have at least 10 cards or more, so we can make this card as effective as we possibly can at just trying to help manipulate our memory. Then its security ability is the exact same as Hammerspark, where we get to gain 2 memory, acting as a very good solid anti-tempo play if the opponent checks this insecurity. Next, I'm going to be running 2 copies of Mist Memory Boost. So Mist Memory Boost is a card that's basically doing everything the deck wants. It's helping fill up our trash, it's helping draw some cards, it's helping with us being more tempo and memory efficient, just because its main ability states that we get to mill the top 2 cards of our deck and draw 1. So it's still replacing itself while filling up our trash, triggering some of our various other abilities as well, and then after its main ability is used up, it'll go to the battle area for its secondary main ability of Delay to gain us 2 memory at a later turn to help with our memory manipulation to make more powerful plays possible. And then the last option card of the deck is going to be 3 copies of Death Stinger. So Death Stinger is a pretty decent option card that is acting as some good hard removal for the deck. So what this card is doing is when this card is trashed from our deck, then we get to gain 1 memory. So even this card is rewarding us for turbo milling our trash, which is what the deck is kind of all about. Then on top of that, it has the main ability where we get to delete one of the opponent's level 4 or lower Digimon. Then for every 10 cards in our trash, we get to add 1 to the maximum level of Digimon who's able to be deleted through this card effect. So this is just acting very similar to Beelzemon, just in option form, with the removal starting off 1 level higher, with its security ability activating its main, so it could potentially be a huge threat and hindrance on the opponent, especially when your trash is nice and full. And then the last card of the deck is going to be the only tamer of the deck, and that's going to be 3 copies of Ai Mako. So Ai Mako is going to be the deck's dedicated memory fixing tamer. That's right, we don't have to rely on Matt all the time, but if you wanted to, you could also run Matt to help grab back some of your options. But I digress, and this is the main tamer that we're going to want to use because of its Beelzemon specific synergy. So outside of the fact that it's always going to hard set us to 3 if our memory is ever less than 3, it has this nice ability where during your turn, when one of your Digimon attacks, we may suspend this tamer to trash the top card of our deck, acting as, well, more self-mill. Then, if we attacked it with a Digimon with Beelzemon in its name, then we could Digivolve that into a Beelzemon Blast Mode from our trash by paying 3 memory. So this just helps us make it Digivolving into our Blast Mode super easy, because we can help set them up in our trash, whether it's through DemiMeramon or all of the milling that already took place, and be able to utilize our Beelzemons to easily warp into him, making him one of the more efficient level 7s, and we already know that Beelzemon Blast Mode can hit very hard and delete a Digimon all at the same time. And then we still just have a lot of other cards to think about utilizing depending on where you want to take the deck and the direction that you're thinking about. So if you wanted to, we do have a whole bunch of other Digitama options, just because I feel like the Digitamas could kind of be swapped out depending on what you feel like you want to be utilizing. Then we do have some other cards to help self-mill, so we do have the promo DemiMeramon, where he has the on-play ability to trash the top 2, and self-milling is the theme of the deck, so it just is a good card to think about utilizing. utilizing. Then if you just want a really good consistency tool, Eismon Scatter Mode is one of the best consistency tools that we have for Purple to be playing around with, because his on delete ability states that we get to draw 3 cards and discard 2, so that way we could not only selectively fill up our trash with what we want and need in there, but also drawing extra cards at the same time. But if you do just want something a little bit more generic and easy to run, then you could just run something like Digimon, just because he natively has the retaliation ability built in, so he himself can act as some solid removal if we need him to be, and on top of that he has a nice inheritable ability that's helping with our self-mill strategy. But if you do just feel like you want to add a blocker and some defense and play a little bit more tempo efficient in terms of going up the stages with, then you could just run something as simple as the starter deck at Devimon to accomplish that goal. Then we do have some other level 5s for the deck to think about utilizing, so if you do want to just shift the deck a little bit more into draw and discard based synergy to help fill up the trash, then you could run something like Lady Devimon. But if we want to play a Lady Devimon that's a little bit more on theme with the whole turbo self-mill strategy, then we do have the Lady Devimon from the Classic Collection. But because we are playing with Demon Lords, we could spice up the deck and play into a little bit more Demon Lord-based synergies and add in Loweemon Chaos Mode because, well, he's another Demon Lord for us to take advantage of. And if we are leaning a little bit more into Demon Lord support, then for that similar reason, we could also run Creepymon, just because he himself is being able to help fill up our trash, res a Digimon, and he's a really good card to swing with when we want to attack with him. But if you do want to try to spice up the deck and play a DNA Digivolution, then we do have Chimeramon as the only real DNA Digivolution the deck can take advantage of, just because we could easily set up some level 4s to be able to line up a DNA to play Chimeramon to do, well, Chimeramon-based things. Then we do have a whole bunch of other options that we could think about utilizing and incorporating into the deck. So if we needed to try to self-delete some of our Digimon, we have Calling from the Darkness as one of the best cards to accomplish this goal, just because even if we don't have a Digimon to delete, we still get to add cards back into our hand. But we also do have Deathclaw as another really good card to think about utilizing to just try to delete our own Digimon as cheaply and efficiently as we possibly can. Then, as I stated before, we do have other consistency tools that we could think about incorporating, so Purple Memory Boost could be in the place of Mist Memory Boost, and we even have Grave Memory Boost to try to grab back other Digimon from our grave. Then we do have Darkness Wave if we do just want an option to help Turbo Mill us, just because we don't care about the fact that we don't have any yellow Digimon to be able to use with this card to grab a Digimon back, because we already have lots of different ways of doing that. Then we do have a whole bunch of other removal options if you also wanted to. Like I stated before, we have Deathclaw, we have Fly Bullet, we have Trump Sword. We just have lots of really solid removal cards to incorporate as well. But if you do want to try to utilize some of our Digimon as efficiently as we possibly can, especially on our higher stages, then Win Rate 60% is an absolutely fantastic card for us to use to make Digivolving a little bit cheaper generically, while also helping fill up our trash. And then we do have a couple of different tamers that we could think about incorporating into the deck depending on the direction that you're going to be taking. So if you wanted to, you could think about utilizing Alice McCoy, because we're already going to want to use Doberman, and Alice McCoy is an absolutely insane card to help us Digivolve as well. On top of the fact that we do have BT02 Matt as another memory fixing tamer to help grab back our options. We have Mimi to try to make our options as efficient as we possibly can. We even have cards like Starter Deck Matt to help us gain some extra memory when our Digimon are getting deleted. So we do have lots of different utility type tamers to be able to help round out what our tamer lineup could be and could do. But for the most part, this is just my interpretation on what a Beelzemon deck could look like come EX2, and I think that Beelzemon is going to be a really fun and powerful deck to be playing around with, just because purple is a very flexible and versatile color with a whole bunch of different synergies that you could throw in and line up to make various different things possible, all depending on the type of tech that you're thinking about incorporating. So that's all I really have for this video. As always, feel free to tell me your thoughts down in the comments below, and down in the description below are a couple of different ways you could support me and the channel. So I do have a TCG Player affiliate link, so when you use that link to buy cards off of TCG Player, then some of that money will go to supporting me and the channel. I also do make and sell playmats over on Overcard Gamers on Facebook, so when you buy a playmat with my design, then some of that money will also go to help supporting me and the channel. And on top of all of that, I do have a Twitch account over on twitch.tv/Zenitsu, so giving me a follow and a subscription also helps support me there, and I do play Digimon on top of various other games on that platform as well. So thank you everyone for watching, and as always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content, and I'll see you in the next video.